Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Scott Schell and I'm a specialist in the Germanic languages. I have a bachelor's degree in German, a master's degree in linguistics, and a PhD in Germanic linguistics from the University of California, Berkeley. And today what I would like to talk to you about are some of the oldest runic inscriptions ever found in the Thorsberg Moor. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this video first. This is the mound, which is arguably connected to the moor itself. There are actually two mounds here. There's one that is the older mound of the two that are actually here, and it is connected to the old European culture. Later on, the Vikings came here and they built a mound on top of that mound, and that became what we know as the Viking Age mound here. And as you can see, there is a stone circle around me indicating that this place is very sacred, and you have that very tall stone there just almost directly behind me called in German a Wächterstein, sort of like a guardian stone. And so I wanted to go ahead and give you this intro real quick, but now we're going to go ahead and walk down to the moor, which is not very far, and we're going to talk about some of those very old runic inscriptions.
So what you actually see here is not, of course, how the moor looked about 2,000 years ago. So as I'm sitting here in front of you, I can tell you with certainty that this was actually all covered in peat moss, to the point to where you could actually go out and walk onto it. And essentially that is where these people would place these offerings. They would go out onto the peat bog, maybe find a hole or even dig a small hole for themselves, and then they would place these offerings into the bog. So what we do know from the archaeological evidence is that there were about 3,000 pieces of archaeological finds that were found in this actual bog. And when they found these pieces, they were usually broken up intentionally. So for example, if there was a sword, it would be folded up and thrown into the bog, or if it was a shield, it would be cut, around its sides and bent up intentionally and placed into the bog. You would also find bracteates that were intentionally, cut up and placed into the bog as well. And so that's how we know that this is a very, very, very sacred area to the Germanic peoples. And of these 3,000 items that were found in the bog, we only have two which bear runic inscriptions. One is called the Thorsberg chape, in which case is the sort of metal mounting of the scabbard or sheath. And then we have the shield boss, which is often referred to simply as the Thorsberg shield boss. And this of course is that metal round part on the front of a shield that is supposed to deflect blows. And so I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about those two inscriptions and give you some very likely interpretations and some datings and whatever other information I can provide to you. So the first one we're going to talk about is the Thorsberg chape. It is actually dated to about the year 200 CE, so it is one of the oldest runic inscriptions ever found. Interestingly enough, this particular inscription mentions the god Ullr. So again, this is a very old inscription, so this is not Scandinavian. It's definitely not Scandinavian. We're talking like pre-Northwest Germanic. I mean, it's really, like I said, it's really old, about 200 CE. So this gives us, potential evidence that Ullr was actually worshipped outside of the Scandinavian sources. So the first word I want to talk to you about on this chape is actually related to the god Ullr. So you'll see the OWLTHU. This is actually related to Gothic Woldus, Old English Woldor, meaning like glory, and then Old Icelandic or Old Norse Ullr, meaning like the beaming one, in which case is also, of course, the name of the god. However, here you will see that O and the W are reversed. You would actually expect it to be WO, but in this case, it's just a simple case of what we call in linguistics metathesis. It's just kind of the transposition of sounds there. It happens all the time. And, you know, there really is no real big deal to suggest that there's a form of metathesis going on here. Again, it's just sort of that juxtaposition of sounds. So, again, we have evidence here that Ullr is actually being called upon in this context. And so the next word we have after Ullr's name is theos. This is an interesting word in this context because it literally means someone who serves, or somebody who is devoted to. And so what you have here with this word next to the god's name, Ullr, is somebody who is a servant of this god, or somebody who fights for this god, someone who is just plain devoted to this god, Ullr. And then on the other side, we get the negative particle, the ni, which in which case just, again, just means not. And then next to that, we get waye. And waye is something that is just not very good. It's someone who's like sort of woeful, or someone who just perhaps doesn't belong to the community, if you will. Just someone who commits nefarious acts. But what's important to remember there is that you have the negative particle in front of that word, and so it means the complete opposite, right? It means someone who is not woeful. It's someone who maybe wants to bring peace or bring joy. And then the word after that you have is maris, in which case this means someone who is famous, essentially. You see that word in Old High German and in Old Saxon, for example, with mari, and then in Old English we have mere, and so on and so forth. So overall, we have, for this particular inscription, we have someone who is devoted to the god Ullr, and essentially is also someone who is peaceful and is not an evildoer and is also extremely famous. That's probably the best loose translation I can give you for that particular inscription. Alright, and the next one is the shield boss. This is also dated to about 200 CE, so again you have extremely old usages here. This one is, it definitely has a magical function to it. So we see that with the AISGZ runes there, we see that it is actually connected to this sort of idea of wishing or demanding or asking. We see this word as, it exists in Old High German as Eiskan, or in Old Saxon Eiskan. And it's literally ask. And so when you're with this particular inscription, it's clearly asking for something, and it's wishing for something, it's demanding something, and that's where the next rune comes into play. Here we actually have an attestation of a conceptual rune. It doesn't spell anything. It actually is the name Hagalaz, and it does mean hail. And so what people have interpreted in the past is that the demand, the wish, is that the arrows hitting the shield, or even, of course, all kinds of sword blows coming down, is that it is that, in which case, is supposed to be deflected from the shield boss and protect the person who's actually in possession of this shield. And it's really not that hard to believe. I mean, even when you think about some of the metaphors in the sagas, we have concepts of, a hail of spears, right? A hail of arrows. And again, Hagalaz is the word hail. And so, I really don't see why there should be such an issue as far as this particular shield boss having this conceptual rune, in which case is asked to literally, in this case, deflect, of course, the hail of arrows or the hail of spears. Alright everyone, well, I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this video, and just to kind of give you a quick recap of the entire context of this whole situation. I first started the video where I was on a mound, and essentially I was on a mound that was on top of a mound, and the lower mound belonged to the old European culture, And the mound that you saw me standing on belonged to the Viking Age. And then, of course, you have the stone circle there, and you have you have the Wächterstein there, which is a sort of guardian stone. But I wanted to make clear that that area is arguably tied to the moor that you're looking at right now. I mean, essentially, I could throw a baseball from this mound all the way over to the moor, and of course, if there were no trees in the way, it would make it. I mean, it's literally that close. And so you need to look at this whole situation in the context of these mounds and the fact that the place is called Thorsberg. I mean, it's literally like Thor's mound, if you will. And, so just look at all of that within that context. It is an extremely sacred place. And, I hope I've been able to paint a pretty good picture of these runic inscriptions and help you understand the context in which they appear. So go ahead and please like the video, please subscribe, and leave a comment below if you have any questions. I would be glad to answer them. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram, and looking forward to anything that you have to say.